This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. I wanted to cover this topic about satanic ritual abuse and about some of the locations that these things occur in, and at least occurred in over time. Now a lot of these rituals are done underground. When the industrial age happened, they started building these underground tunnels. Obviously, we all are familiar with DuPont Circle in Washington, where they have this massive underground world. There are plenty of places, the Ozarks, obviously underneath the Denver airport. Okay, they call a lot of these places military industrial compounds, but they use these to traffic children and get away with it. But before any of that stuff was available for them to do, going back 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and, way beyond then, a lot of these satanic rituals occurred out in the woods. And in fact, a lot of it occurred inside of caves. And I found this interesting that there's a YouTuber who has a channel that's devoted to just going inside of caves and exploring caves, and finding things inside there like snakes and all this stuff. It's strictly about going into caves and researching caves and showing people all different types of caves, okay? So this guy stumbled across one where he had heard that there might have been some satanic rituals done in this cave. He goes inside the cave, and the cave is filled with all types of satanic emblems, satanic, signs that Satanism occurred inside of there. It appears to be blood on the wall, but it could just be candle wax or something like that. I can't confirm that. The guy, of course, makes a mockery of it. He pretends it's a joke and it's not something serious. He even goes Illuminati confirmed, joking around about it. But for people like me who are awake, who've studied the occult, who know how the enemy works and operates and is aware of their symbols, there is tons of stuff inside this cave that I want to show people, because people need to be aware that this stuff is going on around us at all times. And like I said, now it goes on more underground, but it doesn't mean that they still don't do these rituals out in caves. It could be caves out in your woods for all you know. And this guy stumbles upon it. Of course, him and his followers make a joke about it, when indeed he sees all the basic signs and symbols you would see inside of a satanic altar, inside of a place where ritual abuse and animal and human sacrifice occur. Now, inside of this cave, you will see evidence that potentially, at some point in time, child sacrifice could have occurred inside of this cave based on the footprints you see inside of the cave. So he goes inside this cave. He shows some what appears to be blood on the walls. He says it's blood, but I can't confirm or deny that. It could be candle wax. Obviously, they use candles in these rituals. They're not going into a pitch black cave, so they have candles lit when they perform these rituals. But you can see there are animal bones and animal skulls inside of this cage, so there is highly likely that animal rituals were performed inside of the cave. What's also interesting to note, which is very similar to what most of you are aware of the McMartin preschool trial and what happened there, in Ted Gunderson and his research that he did after the trial. It's the most expensive trial in the history of the United States of America, where many of these children came forward and claimed to be victims of satanic ritual abuse. Of course, it got covered up, and they twisted the words of these children to make it seem like the parents were trying to make money off of it. But after the case was dismissed, Ted Gunderson excavated underneath the school, and you can see that they filled in the tunnels underneath the school. They were using the tunnels to for the rituals, satanic rituals, and sacrifice. They found a lot of animal bones, but there's also a tunnel leading to an airport, because they were flying these kids out from a local airport, a small airport, up into the mountains to perform these rituals. So they filled in the tunnels with dirt, and the experts examined the dirt and saw that it was not the same matching dirt, that was on the ground. It wasn't the same soil, that they actually filled it in. So they purchased dirt and filled in the holes. And so they dug out all that filled in dirt, and they found these tunnels. So inside of this cave, he actually shows that they filled in a lot of these holes, and they tried to cover up the cave for the most part where these rituals were performed. But you can see, that there is an altar of rocks that was used, which is common. If they don't have a built altar, which a lot of these homes of these elites have these altars built, they will use rocks and do the sacrifice on top of a pile of rocks. You can see holes in the wall, which, you can only speculate what they were used for, but some of the holes were filled in, so it's a potential place where they could bury animals or possibly even humans, because these things never get discovered and nobody finds it, and everybody thinks this is all a joke. And that's why I want to point this out to the audience out there listening. They will go back in there and they fill it in with dirt, and they get away with this stuff. As he continues to go through the cave, he sees footprints. Some look like adult-sized footprints, and some look like children-sized footprints, along with some animal footprints, raccoons, and things like that. But you can actually see that there were children, or at least young teens, It's hard to tell from the angle that he takes, but he says there are human footprints that look like they resemble that of a young adult or a child inside of this cave. And you could see it all around, going in circles. Obviously, people were in there walking around. It was not covered up. I don't know. Obviously, he doesn't know how long ago people were in there doing these rituals. I would assume it was a while ago, but the footprints do look somewhat fresh. The guy who posted this, the guy who does cave exploring, didn't even say where this was, so I couldn't tell you where it was. But I want to show everybody this stuff because this is what goes on. This is going on everywhere. Everybody is focused in on Pizzagate and obsessing about Pizzagate. And I'm one of the people who has been covering it the entire time. I believe 100% in my heart that it is real. I believe there needs to be an investigation on it. But people are putting too much energy into focusing on that specific topic when this is going on worldwide. This is a worldwide epidemic. It's not just John Podesta and Hillary Clinton. This is going on around the world. It's been going on. Okay, we know going back to Baal worship that they used to sacrifice their children to Baal. Children are sacrificed in these black magic rituals, and it's going on all over the place, and it's not just in Washington, D.C. So people need to be aware of it and say, listen, how can we make, I live in a different state, someone says, right? They say, I live in Texas. Well, what can I do about the pizza? Well, you could become aware of what's going on in your state. Because this isn't just a one-time deal, and that's what some people are making it out to be. That that Donald Trump's going to come in and Pizzagate's going to be, everything's going to be fixed, and he's going to drain the swamp, and Hillary's going to go to jail, and Podesta's going to go to jail. It's not going to stop unless people become aware that this is an epidemic going on around the world. This isn't a one and done situation here in D.C. This is going on all over the place. So you can see the signs and the symbols inside of this cave, including skulls and all sorts of different weird, bizarre things. Animal skulls would show you that likely animal rituals were done inside this cave. You see the blood on the wall. You see all types of bizarre writing on the wall. Unfortunately, I can't make a lot of it out because he didn't really go into detail. He kind of passed over it, just saying, there's all kinds of weird symbols on the wall. But there is one specific symbol that I was able to identify on the wall, and I'm sure all of you can identify it as well, because it is the pedo symbol. It's the symbol that we have seen in Pizzagate. I've talked about it being a symbol that we see all over the place. True Detective had an entire series based on this symbol. This symbol, which is little boy lover, is what it stands for. It also obviously can appear to be the 666. But to these pedophiles, this is code for little boy lover. So we see these weird signs inside of this tunnel, including this symbol, which is now, this is a common thing. We're seeing it all over the place now because they communicate through codes and symbols. So in addition to that, what other symbols do we see on the wall in the cave? We see the skull and bones symbol multiple times, referencing secret society, Skull and Bones at Yale, a prestigious secret society where George Bush and his father and many elites have come and gone through there and become powerful people in this country. So we see that symbol all over the walls. And this isn't something that's just random and weird. And obviously there's nothing here, is this something here that could warrant an investigation? Probably not, because there's just animal bones and animal skulls and stuff. But I want to point this out to people so they can be aware that this isn't some, made up thing, that people could just stumble upon this stuff like this guy did and kind of just go, it's not a big deal. Kids were probably having fun. Or were they? Or was it the Illuminati? Ha, ha, ha. And that mindset is the mindset that the media has created through deflection, through using humor to make a mockery of us. Conspiracy theory and all that stuff. It's all CIA mind control, these terms. And they put them through the media. Now they're using fake news instead of conspiracy theory because conspiracy theories kind of run its course. Now they're using the word fake news to immediately dismiss stuff. So all somebody would have to do is look at one of my videos and somebody on CNN could say, look at this fake news. And then everybody would just dismiss it without ever looking into it, without ever doing any research on it. It's a term used to dismiss things and to laugh things off. So that's kind of what this guy does, which is sad because if people out there were more aware, they'd see the signs and the symbols out there. And these people would be outed. But unfortunately, it's a big joke to people. And, if you look into satanic ritual abuse, over the years, tons of the reports from satanic ritual abuse, a lot of the reports that came forward were involving people, young children, who were victims of satanic ritual abuse, and it was occurring inside of caves. Now it's occurring underground more so. Are there caves underground? Yes. Are there tunnels underground? Yes. They didn't have this network that they have now, 30, 40 years ago. They weren't doing all of this underground. They were doing it above ground. And even hundreds of years ago, obviously, we know witches and Satanists were doing it out in the middle of the woods. If you just Google in satanic ritual abuse cases and satanic ritual abuse in caves and all of these things, you'll find stuff. The LA Times from 1991, March 22nd, has a story about an 11-year-old girl who told the Supreme Court jury that she was sexually abused by her grandmother and made to drink human blood during satanic rituals in a secret cave. She said, dressed in a pink flowered suit, the blonde girl testified that at the age of 2, she was taken in a limousine with both of her grandparents, while her grandfather, now deceased, picked up prostitutes. When she was about 4, she said she was forced to drink blood out of a glass and eat human flesh. In another incident, she testified, they gave me a drug so I would be hyper vigilant. Okay, so this is how they operate. They take these children at a young age, 2 to 4 years old. Okay, I know it's hard for people to imagine because they say, wow, they're actually molesting 2-year-olds, not 10-year-olds or 12-year-olds. It's all ages, and this is why I always mention Zionism and the Talmud, because this is what they teach in the Talmud. The Talmud, which is in every temple around the world, is a book that promotes pedophilia. And that's the core of everything that's going on. That's the core of Pizzagate. It's not about, John Podesta, the individual. Do I believe that it warrants an investigation to look into this guy? Yeah, I do. And Ali Fontes? Yeah, I do. Does my gut tell me that they're guilty? Yeah, in my opinion, they are. Okay? But until people dig deeper, it's always just going to sit at the surface level there. When people start looking, if Christians would look into the temple and look into the Talmud and realize that the Talmud is based on the mystery religions. Okay, the Babylonian Talmud is really what it is. And it talks about how rabbis can rape young boys and young children and do what they want, and how, they're one of their goals is to get rid of Christians, and how Jesus is burning in hell. I have a video in which I've covered this before. People will become aware of who's really behind it, because Zionism is nothing to do with being Jewish. Zionism is a cover. It's a false cover created by the Rothschilds. And I'll do more videos in detail about that. But I want to mention that because these rituals have been going on for a long time. This is just another case, right? Right here from 1991 that nobody's ever talked about. All you got to do is look it up. I'll leave the link below, but you can find this stuff, that it's been going on for a long time. And the core of this is Satanism, but Zionism is a cover for it. It's a cover for the synagogue of Satan. So this young girl who was forced to drink blood, she says, the article says, the grandmother's lawyer said Thursday the girl's been coached by her mother into telling fables. And this is another thing that they do, right? The media comes out and says, oh, she's making stuff up because this sounds so ridiculous. It sounds like what, folks? Like it's out of a movie. That's what they'll say. The girl's mother, 48, and her aunt, 35, filed a civil lawsuit against the 76-year-old mother, alleging she ritually abused them and her granddaughter beginning in infancy. They claim that they've suffered a massive amount of psychological problems, and that's true. Of course they have. They're victims of satanic ritual abuse and mind control and trauma-based mind control. And these parents do this to their children, to their own children, but people think it's unfathomable that they wouldn't. These people are not human. They are satanic. Okay, these people, a lot of them are demon-possessed. They do these rituals to become demonically possessed. They don't just do the ritual because it's a good time for everybody and they're all going, oh, yeah. Okay, they become demonically possessed. They do bloodletting rituals. Even the article from 1991 uses deflection. In a tale reminiscent of the horror novel Rosemary's Baby, the woman testified that she was impregnated by a cult member at the age of 11 or 12, then forced to murder her 6-month-old baby during a satanic ritual in a cave in dusty local mountains more than 35 years ago. So this is from 1991. So you're talking about the 50s, 35 years ago, right? You go backwards. We're talking about the mid-50s. She became pregnant again at 14 after her father prostituted her in motel rooms, but cult members, including her mother, induced an abortion when it was discovered that it wasn't Satan's baby. Okay, so then they go on to talk about Rosemary's Baby. So they make it seem like, oh, it sounds like a fairy tale. Like this girl just has mental problems, psychological problems. She's seen the movie too many times. She saw Rosemary's Baby too many times. And they dismiss stuff like this. But the reason I'm showing it to you is because it does go around all over the place. People can stumble upon this stuff and shrug it off. And that's what's scary about the world we live in, is the fact that people don't want to believe that this is real, even with Pizzagate going on. And people who, are investigating, a lot of them still pass over the occult, the occult ritual involvement, and how this is really, this is practiced in Zionism. It's practiced in Satanism, which both are really one and the same. But people think that these are just some sick perverts that think, Satanism or, they're kind of calling them satanic because they're perverts in a sense and saying, they're just really messed up in the head kind of thing. They don't realize that this has been going on for a long time. Like I said, back to the Old Testament and sacrificing children to Baal. And until people realize this stuff, it's always going to be a joke. That's why it's important to know some of this information. People go, why do we need to know this stuff? Well, you don't. If it ruins your, if it gets you depressed and stuff, then stay away from knowing it. Okay? If you can't handle it, obviously. Is there salvation through knowing this stuff? No. But if you want to raise awareness and help kids out who are ritually, who are trafficked, prostituted, forced to eat flesh, forced to, have sexual intercourse with these people, raped, molested, and killed. If you want to help raise awareness on this, realize that this is deeper than just a few individuals. It is massive. Sex trafficking makes more money than anything in the world. Okay, they'll tell you that it makes a certain amount of money based on, fake numbers where they say, well, it's because they buy and sell children for slave labor. Sex trafficking makes more money than you could imagine, and I guarantee you it's more money than is made through drug trade. I guarantee you that. These elites buy and sell these kids. This is going on every day around the world. It is heartbreaking and it is sickening. But I wanted to show you this cave because there's just basic signs inside of the cave that Satanists were in there. Do I know if a child was sacrificed? Of course I don't. Do we know animals were? It appears that they were. There's skulls, there's bones, there's altars, there's blood on the walls, or it appears to be blood at least. The guy did say it was blood, but he could have been joking. And then we see the skull and bone symbols. We see holes that were filled in. We see parts of the cave that were filled in with dirt to cover up whatever was done there. And we see the little boy lover symbol right on the wall. This is going on all over the place. Satanic ritual abuse is real. And it's another reason that the Satanists that I always talk about and expose, that they have two agendas. One is to always go to abortion clinics and go after Christians who are anti-abortion and pretend that they're so pro-women's rights and that they care so much about it. And the other thing they do is they go protest anyone who claims to be a victim of satanic ritual abuse because they go, it's just a witch hunt. It's just them making stuff up. It's crazy Christians making things up. It's not real. Yet these people claim to be atheists and they're not. And that's how they get away with this stuff. It's a massive psyop. It's a massive amount of mind control. It should bother everybody as much as it bothers me. It makes me so sick to my stomach. And I get upset when people cover Pizzagate and they leave this stuff out. And they leave out Zionism and they leave out, Satanism as being real. They kind of brush over and go, these people are satanic in nature. No, they're Satanists. They are practicing Satanists. They practice satanic rituals, which involves cannibalism, dismemberment, child rape. All of this stuff, demonic possession, it is real, and people laugh at it, and they don't want to cover it when even talking about Pizzagate, and it's sad to me. But this has been going on for a long time, and I wanted to point it out, even with this story from 1991, that a girl who was, raped and molested in a cave, who was forced to eat flesh, to eat her own baby's flesh. This is how sick these people are. So we need to be aware of this stuff, in my opinion. I think it's important to know, and it's important to raise awareness about this stuff. Because if more and more people become aware, maybe, just maybe, people will start waking up and these people won't have anywhere to hide. Maybe expose them, these underground caves and tunnels that they have, that they, tag as military. That's what they do. They tag it and say, well, it's military. You can't go in there. Because they're hiding things. They're hiding it from all of us underneath the Denver airport. I mean, it's all around America. The Ozarks, you name it. DuPont Circle. The list goes on and on and on. So I just want to point that out to everybody, that the guy went in and he, I thought it was interesting that he was going into caves and just doing videos on it. Then he happened to stumble upon one that was filled with all of these, satanic symbolism. He didn't really know for, what those symbols were. He kind of played it off like it was a joke and his audience laughs at it. But to me, that stuff is serious. It bothers me to see people act like that when they see stuff like this. Because if they only knew what was really going on, it wouldn't be funny, would it? What kind of a human being would laugh at the ritual sacrifice of young children? What kind of person would laugh at the ritual sacrifice of an animal? It's sick. And these people need to be exposed. So I'm going to do my best to keep exposing it however I can. I thank you for listening to today's show. God bless all of you and your families.